have the Flash Gordon shirt. Now in the novelisation, it's explained that a female fan actually made Flash this shirt and gave it to him. And that he wears it a lot in order to try and get her attention. I guess he really liked this female fan. Now, I could wear this shirt for this video, but I'm just too fat. So buckle up as things are about to get weird and kinky as we look into Flash Gordon, the version you've never seen. Part 1. The long and complicated history of Flash Gordon. The origins of the Flash Gordon movie goes all the way back to the late 60s, where famed Italian producer Dino De Laurentiis had produced 2 comic book movies, those being Barbarella and Danger Diabolic. Both movies were released in 1968, and both were pretty far out and psychedelic with their 1960s aesthetics. And at this time, Laurentiis also intended on making a theatrical movie of fellow comic book character, Flash Gordon, a swashbuckling comic strip character whom had been around since 1934. So De Laurentiis bought the rights to the character. At that point, De Laurentiis tried to get fellow Italian filmmaker Federico Fellini to make this Flash Gordon movie, but that didn't end up happening. And at this stage, it was now the early to mid-70s, and a young, aspiring filmmaker called George Lucas wanted to make an exciting space opera like no other, and decided to make a modern Flash Gordon movie. However, he was unable to acquire the rights from De Laurentiis. So Lucas would do what anyone else would do who tried to make a Flash Gordon movie and failed miserably. Why, he went on to create Star Wars, of course. Yeah, instead of relying on an old franchise, Lucas just made his own, and Star Wars came out, and it was suddenly the biggest thing ever. So at this stage, De Laurentiis realised, hey, this whole science fiction space opera thing is pretty popular right now. Maybe it's time to return to the possibility of making a Flash Gordon movie. I mean, after all, he owned the rights. De Laurentiis hired Nicholas Roeg to direct, who had directed several surreal movies like Don't Look Now and The Man Who Fell to Earth, as well as Enter the Dragon scriptwriter Michael Allen, who was also hired to write a script. According to IMDb, under Roeg's direction, Debbie Harry was to play Princess Aora, and Keith Carradine was to play Ming, and supposedly a very young John Goodman auditioned to play Flash Gordon, but was unsuccessful. Due to creative conflicts with De Laurentiis, Nicholas Roeg and Michael Allen were no longer part of the project. The Good, the Bad and the Ugly director, Sergio Leone, was being courted to direct, but he felt the script strayed too far away from the original premise of Flash Gordon. For example, in the original comic strip, Flash is a polo player, but in order to be more in the moment, in the movie he's now a football quarterback. I guess if the movie was made a bit later, they would have made Flash Gordon a race car driver. And if it was made now, they'll probably make him a social influencer. Oh, God. Yeah, Flash Gordon, the heroic TikToker. But anyway, Mike Hodges, who previously directed Pulp and Get Carter, was hired as director, and Lorenzo Semple Jr. was hired to write a new script. Now, he had previously worked with De Laurentiis on the 1976 King Kong remake, but he was most well known for writing the 1960s Batman TV series. And just like that series, he wrote the script for Flash Gordon to be very camp, cheesy, with more of a fun, playful, happy-go-lucky vibe. In many ways, also feeling like a spoof, just like the 1960s Batman TV show. Something Semple Jr. would go on to regret, feeling that the Flash Gordon character and mythos was originally serious and darker in tone, and that apparently was Dino De Laurentiis himself who wanted the movie to be fun and camp, probably very much in the same vein as his previous produced movie Barbarella. In fact, I previously mentioned in my Barbarella episode that the Barbarella and Flash Gordon movies almost feel like they could exist in the same universe. Now, Laurentiis' number one choice to play Flash Gordon was Kurt Russell, but he turned the gig down and decided to star in Escape from New York instead. So Sam Jones was hired after he was spotted on a dating show, as well as the rest of the cast, including Max von Sydow as Ming, Topol as Zarkov, Brian Blessed as Voltan, Melody Anderson as Dale, Timothy Dalton as Baron, and Ornella Muti as Aora. And the shoot supposedly wasn't an easy one, on the account of communication issues on set. The movie was being filmed on sound stages at Elstree and Shepperton Studios in England, with half the crew being English and the other half being Italian, which made the shoot really difficult, and apparently many crew members did consider walking out during the filming. That's how heated things got. There was supposedly a lot of improvising going on during the shoot. Things were just being made up on the spot, which probably only added to the confusion. For example, Pink Floyd were originally being pursued to make the music for the movie, but that didn't work out, so Queen was approached instead. And when De Laurentiis found out about this, as in the man who's in charge, his response was, "Who are the Queens?" Yeah, once again, he was in charge. And the famous Flash jump, which has become a well-loved and iconic part of the movie, was improvised by Sam Jones, as they just couldn't figure out how to end the damn movie. By accounts, Jones and De Laurentiis really didn't get along while filming the movie and frequently clashed. And at some stage during the filming, Jones got into some kind of physical fight with someone, which led him to getting a really nasty cut on his face, and thus led to a trip to the hospital, of which De Laurentiis rushed to the hospital where Jones was being treated to make sure that his face was okay and fine for filming. However, tensions became so bad, Jones left the UK and flew back home to the States. This was all while Flash Gordon was still incomplete, which meant that Jones couldn't film audio dialogue for his character, meaning a voice actor would have to be dubbed over all of Flash Gordon's lines, as well as a stunt double would have to be used for certain scenes. And thus, because of this, plans for a sequel were scrapped. Had those involved had any idea that Flash Gordon would become such a huge popular movie later down the track if they actually would have put aside their differences and possibly egos as well to make sequels? I mean, they would have had to have done, right? Part 2. Scrapped ideas and concepts. So there are several concepts and scenes that were going to be filmed for Flash Gordon, or maybe even were filmed but were dropped. To me, the most baffling and bizarre deleted scene would have seen the Dale character turn into a spider. Yeah, it was a dream sequence, and Dale actress Melody Anderson had spent 6 hours in the makeup chair getting herself made up to look like a horrific spider creature, which included a giant spider head which weighed 20 pounds. And literally after being made up, director Mike Hodges felt that there was just no place in the movie to feature this bizarre spider transformation scene. It almost sounds like someone in the production randomly got the idea of Dale turning into a spider and commissioned for that scene to be shot, but didn't take into account the fact that there pretty much was nowhere in the movie to place this scene, which I guess goes back to the communication difficulties of this production. In the original script, after Flash Gordon is executed, a distressed Dale yells out that Ming is merciless, and Ming likes this sentiment, which is where his title, Ming the Merciless, comes from. Yeah, look, I don't have any tears that was scrapped, as despite this movie, even that sounds a little too cheesy and goofy. In the original script, when Ming uses his ring on Dale and puts her into a trance-like state of arousal, sorry, I couldn't think of a better way to describe this, it's explained that Dale is having erotic visions of being on a picnic with Ming in the 1920s, where I guess they skip the sandwiches and go straight for dessert, if you know what I mean. IMDb adds that in the original script, there was to be a Tiger Man character who assists Flash on his adventure. Clytus is psychic, and Ming also has his own army of Amazon warriors. And the movie's climax even ends with a sword fight between Flash and Ming, something that was lacking in the final film. There are also claims that it was originally intended for Freddie Mercury to feature in the movie. Now, I have no idea who he would have played. I don't know, maybe a Hawkman. Or maybe he just would have turned up as himself, as Freddie. Either way, that cameo would have been pretty cool. And Freddie Mercury and Queen still provide a rocking soundtrack. And at that time, Mercury would frequently wear a Flash Gordon t-shirt during Queen concerts, where he would even bring Darth Vader into the mix and sit on his shoulders, to which George Lucas then got involved and said, "Oh no, buddy, no more using my character for your show, thank you very much." According to Peter Weingart, who played Clytus, in the last scene where we see someone pick up Ming's ring, that hand that was picking up the ring was the Clytus character, which is odd as seemingly the character did die. But nope, in the sequel, the Clytus character was to return, where no doubt Flash would have had to have stopped this dickhead yet again. I always assumed that it was Ming himself who collected the ring, but I guess not. It was Clytus. There are versions of the movie that would go on to have some edits made to them. Some VHS copies didn't feature the scene where Dale blasts the guards, thus taking away the character's one true badass scene. Some Laserdisc versions didn't feature the young woodsman who fails the initiation and is subsequently killed. Seeing Ming's face as the aeroplane gets attacked at the start of the movie is often removed from certain cuts, and